Extreme Rules. Yeah, I think run through that real quick. It was underwhelming and pretty much awful.
That's two sides. Underwhelming is like a 5 out of 10, and awful is a 1 out of 10.
Okay, it started off fairly decent. We'll just go through this quick. The Cesaro Swagger and RVD match was pretty decent, mostly because the outcome was favorable with Cesaro. But the main event stuff was just garbage. The one that I'm skipping a lot because the only one that I really want to put any time into discussing was what I'd hoped would be a better match was Bray Wyatt, John Cena in a cage.
And it fell flat.
It was beyond flat. It was awful. And I have a feeling there are going to be people who disagree with me, but it was miserable. A lot of that can be blamed on Cena, I think, because Wyatt has impressed me in the past. The problem with the match was they put it in a cage, right? I don't think Wyatt has a whole lot of experience with cage matches or the additional psychology that's supposed to go into making a cage match work. The other problem was it wasn't just an over-the-top escape cage match. This was one of those ones where all the stipulations are... You can escape through the door if the ref opens it. You can climb over the top.
Which is idiotic.
You can go for pin or submission, which makes all other methods of escape or victory stupid because the pinfall is always going to be the most... If you look at it realistically, which is
if you can get a pin, that means you can walk out the door,
right?
So I have both.
Or you can climb out the top. It's just it's stupid. The ending was gimmicky, but it was fine for the gimmick that Bray Wyatt has. It was really boring. There was almost no wrestling. It was spot and then Cena takes the cage.
Okay, so that was disappointing. What about how about the Evolution Shield match?
That was actually probably the best match of the show, and it wasn't because Triple H or Batista can wrestle. Batista straight up got, full on hatred heat. There was Boo-tista.
X-Pac heat.
Yeah, he got X-Pac.
If you remember from the late 90s,
yeah.
people just hated X-Pac, not as like a heel, but they just didn't want to see him.
Yeah, no one wanted to see Sean Waltman. No one wanted to see Batista. And every time he got in the ring, the crowd just went south. There were chants of Boo-tista. But Rollins, Ambrose, and the big guy, Roman Reigns. They did everything they could. There was a couple of really big spots, off of, out into the crowd, off the steps, onto the concrete and stuff like that. And they won, and, they looked really good doing it. The Evolution looked pretty shitty doing it. And even Orton, who's the youngest of the three, is starting to look like he's getting up there in years.
Oh, he's about... probably 34.
Late 30s?
Not late, but probably 33, 34.
He's been doing it for a while.
He's been doing it for 10 years.
And the thing is I've always liked Randy Orton. He's not the most exciting, but there's just something about his presence mixed with his decent ring ability that I like about him.
But the right team went over, the young guys went over, and then you had the main event, you had Daniel Bryan versus Kane, which I noticed, I haven't watched it yet, I have the WWE Network, I can watch it, but it just sounded like this whole thing with Kane about he's a monster, he's like Jason Voorhees, and then Daniel Bryan can't keep him down. Whatever.
No one buys that.
It's silly as hell. On Raw, they had him run him over with the car, and Brie Bella screaming like she's like she's a damsel from one of these Friday 13th movies. It's just really silly. So I have to go back and watch it. On the internet, it got mixed but positive reviews, so it's surprising to hear that you thought it was just mostly just garbage.
I'm not sure how, because I've been a lot more lenient in what I consider decent wrestling lately, and I didn't find much to find. There's nothing really appealing about it. The most interesting aspect was there's a spot in that main event where they go in the back, and it is very old school wrestling. Sort of deal where they're wrestling through the back and there was a spot on top of a fucking Ford Taurus or something like that, and apparently Daniel Bryan must have taken some forklift driving lessons, because there's a spot where he puts him on a forklift, he puts Kane on a forklift in the back, drives the forklift through the parking garage, down the ramp, back into the ring, and dumps him in the ring on the forklift. And the whole time you can see in Daniel Bryan's eyes, he's concentrating, but it's not determination to win the match. It's determination to make sure he doesn't fuck anything up with the forklift.
He got a crash course in forklift driving that day. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like the loader.
So that's really all I have to say about it. I don't want to bore the people who don't like wrestling. because there's not much more to say about that.
I was going to say it was important just because it seems that finally that WWE has actually turned a page to elevate the younger guys.
Right. At least, at the very least, even if the booking was weird or the matches weren't great, Wyatt went over, Bryan went over, Shield went over, Cesaro went over. All the right people went
getting
over,
elevated, so.
it just wasn't a very fun. And that's probably why it got good reviews online.
Because
it just wasn't fun
because
to watch.
it was booked well. It was proper. It's just that the actual match quality wasn't up to your standards. That's fine.
It's opposite of what it's usually been, where the match quality is decent, but the booking is
Sure.
not.